Face the event. From brand ambassadors and event staffers to magicians and presenters, it's the one and only podcast to introduce the faces in and around the trade show and events industry. And here's our host, Scott Tokar.
Hello and welcome to episode number 5 of Face the Event. My name is Scott Tokar. I will be your magical MC, your host, your ringleader for this crazy world that we'd call brand ambassadors or trade show hosts, hostesses, presenters, magicians. This is where we're going to have some fun. And today's episode, we're going to be exploring a little bit about how to get to the trade show, how to get to an event, how to go to an activation. Should you drive, Uber, or walk? We're going to talk about that. Followed by a really great interview with an old friend of mine, Larry Wyatt. Now, Larry started his career as an actor and then became one of the top commercial presenters in the industry. He's going to tell us a little bit about seating an audience, gathering a crowd, scanning badges, the path to go from actor into corporate presenter. He's going to be talking with some tips and tricks on gamification of an event and how he can go on ear or doing improv. And then followed by that interview, I today am going to give you my personal facepalm. This is the one I use as an example when I interview people. This is what I'm looking for. So you're going to get my favorite facepalm out of all the years on a trade show floor. But let's start off the show with a little bit of fun. Let's talk about how do you get to a trade show and parking.
So parking at a trade show can be very difficult.
So in terms of parking and transportation to and from events, that, if you've been in the industry for 10 seconds, you know that can be a huge hassle.
Again, with parking, you may have a very long line of cars waiting to get into parking, so allow yourself enough time.
Try to map out how long it's going to take you to walk, how long it's going to take you to pay for parking. If you don't want to pay, you're going to have to park further out. How long does that take to walk?
But if you are going to be parking, make sure that you give yourself plenty of time because you may be parking far away.
From my experience, it depends on if the client is paying for parking or not. If the client is paying for parking, you can park a lot closer.
But always make sure in advance that you know if the client is reimbursing for parking or not, because you don't want a big surprise of $60 a day that you have to take care of.
If you're getting your parking paid for, make sure you have your receipt to be able to turn in to get that covered.
Gates, obviously you shouldn't be lying and saying like, oh, I'm parking, and then you show up 45 minutes later, puffing and puffing, dying. In terms of like something like Comic-Con in San Diego, they tell brand ambassadors like, take the trolley. Sometimes the trolleys are packed. Sometimes you have to wait 2 or 3 trolleys to get on one unless you're pushing and shoving. When I work an event like that, I drive and I have backup plans.
Getting to the show, typically for me, it's Uber or walking. It depends on how far it is, but I tend to like to walk.
If you live close enough, hey man, take an Uber to avoid that whole mess.
Now that we have Bird and Lime and all that, like that's a backup plan. You can be like, okay, I'm definitely not going to make it in time. I got to park wherever I am and go.
I don't trust the hotel shuttles because a lot of times they will not run on time, making you late. I try to stay close enough that I can walk because I know how fast I can walk. But in bad weather and stuff, again, if you can Uber in or take some sort of shared transportation in, do that.
I just plan on hoofing it as opposed to trying to like get in that traffic and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is not going to end well. So
this point is valid whether you're driving to the venue and parking or just walking over from your hotel, whatever. Leave more time than you think would possibly be necessary. Take the maximum amount of time you think would be necessary and double it.
Again, it's important that you give yourself plenty of time.
But you still have to figure out which hall you're working in and where you can park. So you have to figure out your time between where you're parking and how long it's going to take to get your badge, or if it's the second and third day, how long it's going to take you for you to walk to the booth.
I can't stress enough. Be way early. Get there, get yourself a coffee and relax. You can always kill time once you get there. But the worst feeling in the world is you get stuck in traffic. You can't find the correct hall, whatever it might be. And then you are stressed. You're showing up at the booth late. You're giving a bad impression to your client. And most importantly, it just unnerves you. And then you're not at your best for the first hour of the show.
Well, we want to thank our friends Becky Jo Schwarz, Larry Wyatt, Robin Bell, Alexis Baize, Jennifer Canale, and Phillip Victor. We are super lucky to have this great guest with us today. I've known this individual for years on trade show floors. Now, he started out his career as an actor, and then he moved into the corporate world to do corporate trade show and event theater. He's done Emceeing in booths, he's done scripted presentations, as well as kind of crowd gathering and gimmicky presentations, song and dance. He's going to talk to us about the job of a crowd gatherer in a seated presentation and how they can help the most and really get that show to get started. He's going to give us the secret of how to stop a transient crowd. He's going to talk about game show hosting and gamification. And he's going to give us some crazy ideas of trade show presentations that didn't work. He's going to talk about the 3-foot square luxury dressing rooms that you get on a trade show floor. And then he's going to give us some tips of getting started, getting your foot in the door, and the road to success. Without any further ado, here's my personal friend, Larry Wyatt. All right. So how you doing today, Larry?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks.
Boy, we have known each other for a very long time. And
a very long time, yeah.
I think it's because we both end up in the same trade shows all the time.
We do, very often, yeah.
So what exactly is it that you do at a trade show?
Right, so I am a trade show presenter, and what my work usually ends up being is one of a few things. Often I'm hired to do a straight ahead informational presentation about whatever product or service the company is featuring in their booth at that trade show. So I'll do straight ahead informational presentations. And then sometimes I will be asked to act as an MC, more or less, where the company that I'm working for has a slate of guest speakers, guest experts that they're going to have get up on the stage and speak on a regular schedule throughout the day. And I will act as the MC to help, first of all, make sure that the speaker is comfortable before it's their turn. They've got their mic, they're wearing their microphone correctly. They know how much time they have, all that kind of stuff. And then I will help gather the crowd for their presentation, give them a nice introduction, bring them on stage. I'll keep track of the time for them. I'll tell them, you don't have to worry about the time. I'll stand in the back and give you a 5-minute warning when you're getting close, that kind of thing. So I'll take care of you, right? And then when they finish up, I can help facilitate Q&A, all that kind of thing. So that's sort of the second thing. Yeah.
Is this how you started in trade shows, by doing this kind of work? Or were you doing something else in trade shows? Or were you an actor? What brought you to this world?
Well, that's a good question, because that really is what brought me to this world. I was and am a professional stage actor and director, but for many years I made my living strictly as a theater actor, and sort of fell into this work by happenstance. A producer that lived in Chicago here was also a big theater fan and would come to see a lot of the theater openings in town, and she would come up to me periodically and say, you need to come work for me doing trade shows. And I was like, what's a trade show? I had no clue. And a few times she would ask me, are you available for this show next month? Well, no, I was in a run of a show and I was never available. But finally, after 2 or 3 years of them asking me if I could work for them, I had a several week break between one show ending and another theater run starting. And she called me and said, hey, can you do this show? And I said, well, yeah, I've got that time off. Sure. So that's how it happened.
Now, I think we both know, I think I know the person that was asking you this, because she was pretty prolific in trade shows for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And was a big theater fan. So she would go to theater a lot. And that's how she would find some new talent to sort of groom as trade show talent, as trade show presenters.
Without getting too personal, we'll just kind of keep the name out there ethereal, but I can tell you that they were a production company that made a lot of trade show and live activation, a lot of times a song and dance or a character kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because when I started, my first trade show was in the fall of 1991, so that goes back a ways. And at that time in the trade show world, there was still plenty of just straight ahead, informative narration kind of presentations. But there were also a lot of sort of informative but entertaining presentations, where anything from song and dance to playing a character that was somehow woven into the product story. So that my theater training came in very handy, playing some, crazy characters that you still had to have fun with the audience, but you still had to get the information across. It's very much like, Scott, what, you and fellow magicians do, where, there's, your magic is immensely entertaining. That's the nature of it. It fascinates us. It entertains us. It makes us go, oh my God, how did he do that? But your job is to entertain us like that, but weave in a credible way some of that product messaging. And it's walking that line that makes you a real pro, right? So that's really what we were doing from an acting standpoint, playing some crazy character to entertain the audience, but still working in hey, we really can solve your problems within your business world, whatever this product or service is that, you're talking about.
Well, I always said, and I'll test this out on you right now.
Okay.
Did you happen to watch the last Super Bowl?
Yes.
Can you remember your favorite commercial on the Super Bowl?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. No, I can't.
All right, then let me try this. Do you remember a commercial on the Super Bowl that had 3 frogs sitting on 3 lily pads, and they both
absolutely?
What did they ribbit out?
That I don't remember.
Do you remember? It was Bud Weiser.
Oh. Yeah, Budweiser. That's right. It was one of those series of Bud commercials.
Or maybe you might be able to remember some of the Dorito commercials from years ago.
Oh, yeah.
The interesting thing is that using the humor, you're able to remember these commercials years later.
Years later, yes.
And last year, we don't remember too many of the Super Bowl commercials because no one wanted to do a funny Super Bowl commercial. If you remember, there was there was a little bit of controversy going on with taking a knee and who was going to be our halftime entertainment and all sorts of things like that. So people wanted to be a little bit more serious and say, hey, we're here, but they didn't want to be funny. And we forgot all their commercials.
And I don't remember those commercials.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I remember, Larry, is that, some of the funny characters you had to do working with that company. And the companies that went with it because they were fun to watch, and I think that's what's so interesting about having an actor in a trade show booth is that you make it fun to remember those things. Yeah. What's been your wildest characters, or maybe the craziest companies that you've worked for?
Oh my gosh, there's been some pretty crazy ones. I'll tell you one of the ones where I had the absolute most fun doing was we did a Wayne's World takeoff. It was Dwanes World, right? So I was Dwayne. And the first time, we did this several times for a number of different companies because the movie was so popular. But the first time we did it, the company that signed off on it said, yes, let's go for it. Let's do this premise. They went all in, right? So we had our booth on the trade show floor. They had our stage set decorated exactly like Wayne's basement in the movie. The ratty couch, the whole deal, right? And they even went so far as a couple of months before the trade show, they brought me and the other actor into a studio, took pictures in character and made posters ahead of time, Dwanes World, for whatever company this was. So we had the posters there to sign for people. They even hired a live cameraman that would be shooting us live each time we did the presentation, showing it up on a big screen. And it would also allow us to mid-presentation, right? So we'd be in the middle of the presentation, oh man, right, and this, does this, this product, this product. If we would see like some cool person or some good-looking chick walk by, right, down the aisle, we could stay in character and grab the cameraman and say, follow me, go and stop her and said, whoa, you are totally babelicious, come with me back to the such and such booth. Meanwhile, our audience is watching this whole thing, right? And we bring her back, make her part of the show, still weave in all the product messaging, but it was an absolute blast. The audience loved it because we went all the way with it. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
When you're doing this, do you hire other people out in the aisle to gather a crowd for you, like crowd gather kind of people or badge scanners or that kind of thing? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's generally is the case, whether it's whether it's me working for an agency or if I'm working directly for one of my direct clients. Usually the case is that we will indeed hire crowd gatherers. It helps the live presentation so much. It frees us, the performer, up to concentrate on entertaining and informing the audience, and they are remarkable at getting out there in the aisles and very gently but firmly saying, hey, we're about to start this really cool presentation. Come on in, have a seat. And then even once the presentation starts, they're still out there going, hey, you haven't missed much, gather around, come on in. And they can build a really nice crowd. And as you know, just the fact of a performance of some kind going on, a crowd begets a crowd. So exactly. The moment you can get even a few people and get started, people walking by, it's human nature. They go, oh, something is happening there. I don't want to miss out on that. Let me go check it out.
So right? The crowd gatherers and the badge scanners are really, really important to our job, especially on a theater style presentation.
Yes.
You can't really start a theater style presentation, at least until there's a couple of people in the audience.
Right. That's right.
So their job is really in concert with what we do. So there's a great need for these people that are doing the badge scanning and the crowd gathering, and sometimes they hand out tickets, like raffle tickets and that kind of thing too, huh?
If there's going to be some premium drawing at the end, you're right, absolutely. But the key thing is, Scott, because I think we've both probably been in the situation where sometimes you just don't have those crowd gatherers. The budget doesn't allow it, whatever. And you're on your own to gather a crowd. Well, you can do that. I can say, hey, I'm just about to get started with this really informative presentation. We're going to give away a nice premium at the end. Come on in. Yeah, come on in. Have a seat. Okay, great. I can get a handful of people and get started. But then once I start, I can't really do that anymore. Now, some people will gather around, as we said, just because a crowd begets a crowd. But my crowd gathering is then done once I've started, and it's so helpful to have somebody to continue to bring people in, because even if somebody joins your presentation, right, Scott, they've missed your first two tricks, right, or they've missed the first half of my scripted presentation, and then they join, there's still a lot of value in that, right? Because even if they hear that last half, they'll hear a couple of feature benefits, whatever it might be. See maybe one cool trick from you or whatever, but it's enough for them to go, whoa, I didn't know this company did that. I'm going to stick around and see a demo, whatever it might be. Well, so there's still great value in that for our clients.
And there's also a quantification element that's going along here too. So yes. The number of scans that we get gives us a count for how many people saw the presentation. And for the exhibitor that hired us, that's really important for them to see that quantification of their investment as well.
It is. It's often how the marketing person that probably hired us can justify that to the C-level people above her, and to be able to say him or her, to be able to say, yes, see, we got 1,000 people through the theater over these 4 days, that really increased our throughput. So this investment that we made in this live presentation piece is worthwhile. Give me that budget again the next show, right? It's how they can justify the investment.
Okay, so if you're listening into the podcast and you're thinking, well, I want to aim to be one of these live presenters or a speaker, but maybe you're just starting and you're trying to build a crowd or scan badges. Do you have any tips on how to stop a crowd, get people to come into the theater?
Absolutely. First and foremost, you have to have a thin skin. You can't take rejection personally. Just like an actor who goes to dozens of auditions and they're told no, 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 until finally somebody says yes and you get a job, right? Same thing with a crowd gatherer. Your job is to approach, everybody you can that's passing by and let them know, hey, we're just about to begin this really great presentation. It's informative. It's on this topic. Come on in, have a seat. Time after time, people are going to say, no, I'm on the way to a session, or no, thanks. I don't have time. I'm not interested. That's not what I'm looking for. You can't take that personally. You just, thanks, have a great day, and on to the next person. So it's going to be, quantity the more people you can approach, the more people that eventually you will get in. So that's tip number one. And tip number two is you just try to make it as friendly and as beneficial sounding as you can. Like you're not trying to rope them into something, but that there's a possible benefit for them. That, hey, we're just about to get started with this. First of all, Scott Tokar is going to be, doing some really cool magic tricks for you. You're going to have a lot of fun with that. But he's also going to be talking about some of these great security solutions that our company offers, and I think you may find that really helpful. What do you say? You want to come in, have a seat? It's that kind of approach instead of just trying to make them feel like they're getting roped into something.
Yeah, well, and also sense. A giveaway or a drawing really helps a lot.
Always
too,
helps.
To kind of get them to sit down.
Absolutely. Yeah. These really cool, funky T-shirts we're giving away, whatever it might be. People just love to get stuff like that. So it works like a charm.
Now, it sounds to me like when we talked about your Dwanes World experience, that was very much kind of improv. You kind of had the product messaging that you had to do, and then you kind of had the opportunity to improv. But a lot of times the things are very heavily scripted. What do you find yourself doing most of now?
Oh, by far, it's almost always just the straight ahead informational kind of presentation, with the exception of it's still popular to format a live trade show presentation into some sort of gamification, right? Okay. So that there's some sort of it's couched within a trivia game or something. So that's still pretty popular. I'll act as game show host still quite a bit.
So do you have like a screen with the questions and then like a Family Feud style thing or
absolutely.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Like that, or exactly. We've done all of those, or Jeopardy, or sometimes it's there's a medical client that I have where we do primarily nursing shows. Right. And nurses, as opposed to doctors, nurses, very inquisitive. They want to learn, but they also want to have fun. Right, they're not afraid to let their hair down.
Nurses are my favorite audience ever.
They're just awesome.
And if we happen to have a nurse out there listening, you know what? I think it's because they got into the business because they love people. They care about people. They have this heart of gold. I love nurses when I work nursing shows. Doctors sometimes are a little more difficult. It depends on what level doctor they are too. So
they absolutely are. But with the nurses, I will sometimes set up a gamification where we actually get them competing against each other because they are also quite competitive. So I'll divide the audience into two halves, say, okay, your team, and pick a team captain. Okay, Sally, you're going to be my team captain. This is Team Sally. This is Team Betty over here, right? And we pit them against each other. And I might even, so this particular medical client that I'm thinking of, They make a lot of wound care solutions. So there's a lot of different kinds of specialty bandages, that kind of thing. So we'll have like mannequins up there, get the 2 team captains up there and tell them you've got 60 seconds to properly apply this dressing to the elbow, this dressing to the knee, and this dressing to the neck. On your mark, get set, go. And the teams are cheering their captain on, and they just have a ball. But of course, you're demonstrating how effective these dressings are in the same time. And as I'm calling the action, I'm weaving in talking points about the features of these dressings.
So I think the lead into that, though, is that sometimes, like especially if they're doctors, they're hard to stop. They're hard to get them to engage. If we, as professionals, find it difficult sometimes to engage these people, trust me, these exhibitors that we're working for, these booths that we're working for, they don't know how they can possibly stop them. And they're hiring us because as a crowd gatherer, as a badge scanner, as a live presenter, as a magician, we're the professionals that can indeed stop that person and get that booth doing things, right?
It's right. You're absolutely right. That it increases our value.
So, tell me, we talked about the Dwanes World thing. Were there any other funny situations or any other maybe places that you've been that, I can tell you that one of the funniest things I had to do one time was a live presentation for a company that had a software that they wanted to sell to. Well, this is so old. I can totally talk about this.
Okay.
This company had something like what you're seeing. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, you see there's a split screen going on. And if you use Zoom, you've seen a lot of people up on one screen. That virtual presence 15 years ago was something really, unbelievable.
Amazing.
And this company, what they did is they developed a program, a software, a piece of hardware maybe that went in line to allow you to do this virtual presence with many people. And they went to a telecom conference. They really only had to show their thing to one company. They wanted AT&T to buy them. That is the reason that they were there. All the other customers that we stopped, they could really care less about. They just needed AT&T to say, but their software was buggy and it didn't work and it could break down at any moment. Thus, they hired me, the magician. So should something go wrong, I could go, wait, let me do a magic trick for you and take their mind off of the fact that it wasn't working. So that was a wild kind of place to be. What's like the wildest company you've worked for?
Oh, gosh. I don't know about the wildest company, but I'll tell you what you made me think of. Like the craziest performance I ever had to give was, and again, this was years ago when we did some of these crazy character sort of driven things. They decided it would be a really fun idea. This was for a company that made some sort of cleaning, industrial cleaning supplies, like for restaurants, things like that, right? So they were going to tell their story through a two-person role play kind of thing, where one person is the restaurant manager and then another person is like the dishwasher back in the kitchen, right, who needs to be properly using these various cleaning supplies, right? But instead of, let's don't hire two actors to do this, let's hire Larry and have him play both characters. Now, it would have been bad enough to have to, well, I'm the boss, how's it coming with the cleaning? Well, boss, I'm trying to that would have been bad enough, right? Just to sort of play. But no, let's take it further. They had a costumer create a costume for me, was sewn together. Half of it was a business suit, half of it was the dishwasher, apron and all that stuff. And I had half a mustache. So one guy had a mustache, the other guy was clean shaven. I had a wig that half of it was black, half of it was blonde.
Reminds me of Victor Victoria a little bit there.
Exactly. Oh my God. It was just the most horrific thing you ever saw. The audience looked stunned every time I had to get up there and do it. Furthermore, now you'll find this interesting. Furthermore, this was in the days when I first started with doing trade shows. The ear prompter was a fairly new technology. Not that many people used it. Yeah. And initially, I resisted using it because I came from the theater world, and my pride was, please, you can hand me a 30-minute script, give me an hour, I'll come back and I'll have it memorized for you. I mean, I was memorizing lines all the time. That's my job. I'm a theater actor, right? So I was memorized for this thing. And whatever this product line was of these cleaners, they had these crazy names, you know, the XR2200ZF2 line of dishwashing fluid, and the XRZ28 blah 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 of this and right. So I memorized, and I had these down. So it's right before the show, we do our preview for the muckety mucks from the company, the big bosses, right? Now, this script has gone through approval process. It's been stamped, approved, given to me a week ahead. I've memorized it. We're ready to go. I mean, it's boom. But we're going to do a preview an hour before the show hall opens for the, VP of sales or whatever is there. So we do the show for him. I do the thing. I do my, well, what do you think? Well, I think it's right. The whole deal. He comes up to me afterwards. He said, man, Larry, that was really good. But it's amazing how you play those two characters and how do you keep them straight? No, that's great. I said, oh, yeah. By the way, Larry, that's really not the name of the product anymore. We've changed it to the ZM, blah, 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 not the XR, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I say it 47 times in this script. And I'm like, okay, I'll change it.
Larry, as magicians, we're totally familiar with this. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Oh my God, I just.
My goodness.
Anyway, that was the craziest one, and just a little addendum to that. It was so embarrassing, so between shows, I was doing it twice an hour or whatever the schedule was. So the few minutes between shows. Normally, I would hang out, with the client, be helpful any way I could, help talk to customers, whatever. I love doing that stuff. But I really couldn't, being in this crazy half costume thing, because people would just come up going, what the heck are you supposed to be? It was just this. So they had a tiny little storage closet, tiny, that I would go in, fold myself up in like this, and sit between shows just so I didn't have people gawking at me for the 10 minutes between shows.
And I know those closets. They also contain all of the electrical and everything. So it's 100 degrees hotter in there than it is anywhere else.
You bet. My stick-on mustache is falling off because it's so hot in there. And that was a good one.
Well, see, now that's the real biz. If you're listening to this podcast, what you just heard is the absolute real biz of what goes on in our business. Because I can't just sympathize. I can empathize. I've been there with you on that very same thing. I haven't had to be Victor Victoria, but I've been in that little closet and everything else too. It's just
let's face it, it's glamorous. It's totally glamorous, Scott. Yeah.
So, I don't want to take up too much time here, but I do want to give some of the listeners a chance to understand. A lot of them are looking to get into the business, or they're just starting. Do you have any tips or tricks for people that are just beginning, or agent tips, or marketing tips, or business tips that we can share?
Well, not so much into how you act. As far as getting started, you just need to get your foot in the door any way that you can. And you mentioned, Scott, a lot of the way that some people can kind of get their foot in the door is starting out as a badge scanner or a crowd gatherer, that kind of thing. At least it gets you in the environment, seeing what it's like, and you can learn to make yourself as valuable as you can to the client, so that they end up thinking, I can't imagine doing this without these people, right? So that's step number one, because it seems like it's a little bit easier to get your foot in the door as a scanner or crowd gatherer, because you may know somebody who does that kind of work and they think, oh, Larry, he's got a real bubbly personality. I'll bet you he'd be good in that role. With a little bit of training, he could be brought up to speed real quick doing that. Now, moving from there to being a presenter, that's a different matter. You have to really, don't try to make that jump until you have put in a lot of work practicing. You have to be absolutely ear prompter proficient. You have to really master that skill first. Don't try to convince somebody to take a chance on you and then fall apart because you're not really comfortable using the ear and you can't handle it. Right? You've blown your chance forever.
Right.
So put in the work first. Just like you wouldn't dream of if you needed a magician to sub for you, you're going to pick somebody that that's really competent, right? You may know some young guy or gal that is just learning the ropes as a magician. You're probably going to want to feel really comfortable that they are really solid in their magic skills before you add all this other stuff.
And that's only the start. That's only the start. So if you're an actor, there's extra stuff that you need to understand as an actor to being in a trade show world. And the same thing, if you're a magician and you want to get in the trade show world, frankly, there's so much more to learn about trade shows first, and then go to be the magician at a trade show. It's a very different world. And I mean, if you're acting in a paid show someplace, people are coming to see you. They're not coming to see you at a trade show. You weren't even on their list of people to see that day. So it really is. You have to have a thick skin there too, huh?
You do. You absolutely do.
Well, Larry, I really appreciate your time spending. In fact, I have to say this has been the most fun interview I've done talking about some of these things. And I know that you're going to be in some of our upcoming face palms and upcoming subjects that we have, because we got some funny subjects coming up too. So I look forward to hearing some more of your stories and some of those.
Sure.
Larry, I'll see you out there on the trade show floor.
Absolutely. You know it. And the sooner the better, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for spending some time here on Face the Event. Well, we want to thank Larry Wyatt for some of his insights and tips from the trade show floor. Well, every week here on Face the Event, we've been sharing a face palm. And if you're not familiar with what a face palm is, it's literally where you take the palm of your hand and put it to your forehead in disbelief of what you've just seen occur before your very eyes. So on a trade show floor and at activation out there in the real world, sometimes there's just stories you just can't believe. This week, I'm going to share my story with you. About 15 years ago, I was on a trade show with a drug company at the Pri-Med trade show. Now, you would think that the visitors to a medical trade show would all be very well-to-do and have no reason to worry about grabbing little tchotchkes and giveaways, but nothing could be further from the truth. During the Pri-Med trade show, most of the folks would be in session because they're getting continuing education unit credits for their certifications, whether doctor or nurse, which means that the trade show floor would be completely quiet. No one would be on there while sessions were going on. But every once in a while, someone would arrive late to the show and they couldn't get into a session. So while I was taking a break, I was leaning against one of the walls, watching back at our very booth, as I saw a young nurse walk up sheepishly into our exhibit. She looked left and then she looked right, as if she was about to carry out the most incredible bank robbery ever seen. She walks up to the candy bowl. It's a bowl that's filled with those mints you get at a Mexican restaurant that look sort of like a candy cane, red and white striped, that are just supposed to take care of your breath after too many margaritas. Well, again, she looked left and right, picked up the entire bowl, and proceeded to pour the entire bowl of mints into her bag as if no one saw her. Well, I was just about to embarrass her when she walked another 10 feet, did the exact same thing to another one of the stands in the booth, looking left and then right, picks up the bowl, and pours all of the mints into her bag. You know, you have to wonder if $2.50 worth of mints available at any Walgreens is worth your dignity, but I guess at a trade show, every giveaway counts. That is a facepalm. Well, we've had a wonderful week. This has been episode number 5 of Face the Event. Thank you for spending your time and sharing some of the your time with us this week to hear what's going on in brand ambassadors, activations, trade shows, and the world around us. I would love to see you here next week as well. Would you click subscribe on whatever podcast method you're using, whether it's Apple iTunes, whether it's iHeartRadio, Stitcher, whether it's Spotify, or even Amazon Alexa. And if you could help me by leaving a review, let us know that you're enjoying the show and what parts you love. It will definitely encourage us to continue what we're doing. Folks, I have not come up with a way to end the show yet. I'm still looking for a tagline. So until I do, let's just say, your message here. It's for sale, just like we are in the world of brand ambassadors and trade shows. Have a great week.